talking about. But if you've got the image in front of you, so next time we're going to talk about photojournaling and those sorts of things, where you have the image with and without. Remember that thing you said about if you have an image in front of you, it frees the mind to go other places. If you don't have the image, then you have to include the description in what you're talking about. Okay. So this is a useful activity to approach no matter what you do. Is you always think of, let's see, what did he say about there's in watercolor, there's forward techniques, and photography, there's finding, you know, pretty soon it's just, okay, I'm going to go out and do this. Okay, does anybody have, do you want to do something? Are you just sit there and, okay. Does anybody have anything outside they wrote which they would like to emote? Come on, somebody. Who did a?
I'll emote the cornfield across the road.
Okay.
We look like an eternal military formation, measured, rigid, decapitated, yet still unwavering. Our toes clenching another in fear of losing our footing, while reminiscing about the moist, earthy aroma and bright sunlight of our youth.
Kind of a sad cornfield, isn't it?
It's looking sad, isn't it?
It is. Very good. And to go that with an image of, you know, the corn rows going into the water, I mean, you know, that kind of says what is going on here in a very distilled and a very, very nicely poetic way. Anybody else got something?
I'll share my turtle one.
Okay.
I look like an acorn in shell that mated, grew a head and limbs, and were irradiated. I feel like time that has cherished and hardened my being. I taste as bitter and tough as pecans gone bad. I smell like dust, and I sound as silent as my comrades who have gone before me.
Very good. I like it. You eat bad acorns?
Oh, I just got all these, I've got all these pecans.
Oh.
And the insides taste so bad, you know, yeah.
So you need something to trigger something, you know. You looked at that, Michael looked at the cornfield, you know. The whole point of this is for you to not to look at anything ever the same again without, in other words, it's a good thing.
The birch tree out here had a really interesting pattern of knots that had been healed over, and then the others, and that's what I concentrated on for the framing the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And just the sketch notes they have is that it's a record of time. My handwriting. Stories from dead ends, and then there's a couple little branches coming out for the beginning. It was pretty cool.
Cool. You know about the birch trees and is it Rocky Mountain National Park or is it Yellowstone? Well, the bass herders carved, you know, wrote all these things on the birch trees, and they in the last 100 years they've all healed over. But you can go and see these big birch trees with all these with the bass herders. And the other thing is you can tell the record of the elk in the high elevations because they use the birch, so you can tell how high the tree grew, but where the elk scars are. You know, there's all these sorts of things going on with birch. So it's good that you saw. The other question is, when does vandalism become history? That would be a good question. When does vandalism become history? Is it?
Look at that Paleolithic face.
When does graffiti become history, right? Everybody's been to Signature Rock, and you know, and Nebraska. That's history. But you know, you spray paint Havana sucks on a water tower, and it's probably you'll probably get arrested, right? Because they used really nice fonts in the old days.
I also studied the same birch tree and I wrote something about it too.
Good.
I have octopus arms heroically reaching upward. My pale skin is pocked with blotchy freckles. a half dozen darkened eyes, sockets of blindness, envisioning centuries of activity from a single point.
Good. Another thing to note about vandals and trees is if you go through a beech forest and you see all the beech trees with all that writing, but if it's 50 feet off the trail, it's clean, so vandals are historically pretty lazy. We also did a study a few years ago on mammal distribution in southern Illinois. And we looked at all the collecting points of all the mammals. And then when we got our GIS data, we overlaid it with maps of the roads. We found out that mammalogists are extremely lazy. Because all the mammals, so they just stop on the roadside and put the trap on the side of the road, so that everything was, that was kind of an enlightening endeavor.
The distribution of archaeological sites is profoundly patterned along streams and roadways.
The what?
The distribution of archaeological sites.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Well, so we show that to our mammalogists, and they're like, Anybody else have something? Share? Come on, gotta be something.
Okay.
Oh, look, it's nice and sunny out now. Yeah.
One of my little things that I saw outside, the top knot that held us to the tree has let me and my mate loose. So now I might become a top hat for a wood nymph, all layered in scales of brown and tan. The smell of wet wood just adds to my charm. It's a little cap up an acorn.
Okay. Okay. Not to beat a dead horse, but this is important for you. Okay. You see all of these. Okay. 5/6 at a 60th, 5/6 at a 15th, F16 at 1 second, F22 at 5 seconds, F8 at a 60th of a second, F28 at 1/250th of a second. When you look at your camera and you see those numbers, do they register? No, not yet. Okay. When they start registering, then you make a judgment before you take the picture on, is that going to be an appropriate group of settings for what I'm going to do. Like last night, Sue was shooting. It was almost dusk and it was dark, and Sue was shooting, and there wasn't enough light. Everything was blurry. So I said, well, bump up the ISO from 400 to 800. Okay. So she did that, which gave her one more f-stop worth of light. Now, how should she have used that? That's the kind of thing that she uses for depth of field. Sue's a depth of field pig. She loves depth of field. But what was the issue that keeping her from getting the image? Motion. So she had to use it in shutter speed. She was right. She would have liked to use it in depth of field because she wanted depth of field, but that wouldn't have solved the problem. Okay, so when you do something, these things are irrevocably hooked together, and it's always hooked together. So when you do an adjustment, make sure you do the adjustment in the right way to get what you want to do. Okay, what you want to get done. All right, so some of you have already done this. Take all this over here. I'm going to put these down here. Okay. When you've got a higher number f-stop, higher number, F16, F22, which of these apply? Higher number.
Greater depth of field.
What?
Greater depth of field.
Thank you. What else?
Last slide. No. No, the other way.
More this light.
More light. Less light. More like that.
less lights.
And
If
stop
the hose
down.
is smaller, there's less water going through it.
Stop down.
And there's another one,
Stop down.
up, down, all right. And what goes on the other side?
I know where I have yeah, and smaller.
All right. More light, opened up,
Less depth.
less depth of field. If that is not indelibly etched in your mind, you will always be confused.
The largest gap.
Higher, more, less,
Well, that's good.
It's better.
lower, more, it's a both more or less, but, okay. No matter what kind of camera you have to be able to control it to the extent your camera will let you control it, okay? So. All right. All right,
I have a question.
yeah,
My camera has just lots of little things that I can go to, like AV or M or P, and, you know, I've been trying to figure out what each of them mean, but as you work with one, then it doesn't let you change any of the others, it appears, right?
once you set something, then you set a thing, a group of things in motion. If you have P, A, V, and M,
Yes?
if you put it on P, you should be able to control the aperture f-stop ratio. If you put on aperture, it'll let you set the aperture, and then it'll set the shutter speed. If you put it on shutter speed, it'll set the aperture for you. So you don't have, once you choose something, you don't have control. That's why I said using P is the most important, because you can change it at will. Now, on your camera, I don't know if you can do that or not, but, okay? You change this relationship. That's what's important, is being able to change that relationship and control it.
What is ISO sensitivity?
ISO, that's the sensitivity of your sensor. That's something we didn't talk about. All of your cameras have ISO, and you should shoot on the lowest ISO that the conditions will allow you to shoot. For instance, today, 200 was marginal. There wasn't enough light. You can bump it up. You can go up to about 800 without losing any image quality, which means you need less light to do the same thing, so everything, the whole scheme shifts from one side to the other. Okay? This is just kind of a question. Okay. All right, I have one last thing, and then I'll... You all remember your composition thing? Okay. Just to show you that I wasn't making all that up, and my assistant, okay, she didn't have anything to do, so I have this whole stack of calendars, you know, Audubon, and then for many years back, from the world's great photographers. They all got paid big bucks for these. And what you do is get your compositional sheets out. There was a sheet in there that said compositional frames from last time. I don't know if you remember, from last week. No, well, it wasn't. There was a,
It's in the back of these.
let's see.
It's evaluating.
I'll show you what it's about.
Is it big?
Yeah, sure it is.
This sheet.
It's this one, same, yeah.
Yeah, it's this sheet. Is that out? Just gonna give each of you a stack of 5 photos, and you simply look at them, look at these compositional schemes, and figure out which one they use. We all do the same thing. There's a finite number of ways to look at the world, and everybody does it. Okay? It's in there somewhere. Which is the the major compositional theme that that person used to take that photo.
But you've got 5 and I've got 5, so you can do that.
Yeah, you can do. Just do it quickly. Just look at it and say, okay, what did they do?
Does everybody have photos?
This teaches you to be analytical. That's why you never look at a photo again without saying, how did they do that, and why did they do that, and what are they doing? Right? And you also notice what's unique about all these photos is the color saturation. Like zing. No wussy washed out, blurry.